So, week 7, day 13. This is Intro to Networks. Other items, talk about summer school. We have the security class, and we have the networking class. At least that's where we're at right now. The networking class might move to fall, but we'll see. We talked about downloading Office and security issues if you have like your Google account open on one of the machines that's you logged in, like the networking side. Instead of into your account, you didn't authenticate to your Active Directory account. Then you want to make sure you log out of Google or any other personal accounts you might have logged into. Okay? Labs. Key learning things. We talked about the labs, see if there was any questions. I talked about making sure you have configurations in with the labs anytime we configure now switches and pretty soon routers. And then also the configuration from your PC or your workstation. We talked about IP addressing, we talked about address resolution protocol, and I gave them a handout for their skills-based assessment. And I also assigned their devices. You know, I could put a copy of that in there, which device goes to who. I can do that. I'll do that later on. Okay. A lot of times we can figure out how to do things, and then we want to strive, dig in deeper to understand why we do what we do in terms of configuring devices and so forth. Let's take a look at it. We started out, we looked at the switch, we talked about putting a PC on the switch, we talked about another switch on the switch. You know, we're in the lab. We looked at the switches and we telnetted into, a lot of the work done in class. It would be good to be in class in order to get a better concept of what we're talking about. We telnetted into this switch, and then the students, you guys took a look at the configurations. You looked at them. I think we looked at the ARP table at one point, so forth, the routing table, and we looked at those. All of these would appear, since each of the ports here on this particular multi-layered switch, they're all routing ports, so if this was actually operating as a router more so than anything else. We looked at the connection between there and this router, which was device 24, and you couldn't telnet to that because not all the passwords and not the VTY lines were not set up. We also looked in this layer 2 switch, and there we could look at the MAC addresses in that, and there we could see all these connections. We could see these connections from down here, and we could also see all of those Linux workstations that are on there. And we could see all the other switches that were connected to that device. It's almost full, or it is full. We'd have to look. Okay? And then we reviewed the concepts there of the MAC addresses and how that works. Another important, and then we talked a little bit about then going out to the firewall, this network compared to, let me use another color here, compared to this network. Okay? I did show how the addresses were NATed coming out of here to put them on the other network. We'll learn more about that later on. Another couple key things we want to mention. When this device, let me use another color, when this device, let's use red, when this device goes to this routing device, and when that traffic then, they get rid of the MAC addresses, right? You de-encapsulate it, comes in, routes it, finds the port, okay, to send it out of. Let's say they're pinging something over here, and then it takes it and it's going to put it back on that port. When it comes back out the port here, let's just say we were pinging this this PC right here. Then it puts the MAC address for that PC back on. So when it hits this switch, it goes to that PC. Or if you're going to the internet, as soon as it leaves here, you know, the MAC address are relative here, but that MAC address isn't used here. In fact, there's a new MAC address between here and here, and then a new one between here and all the way out here. And then a different one from here to here, MAC addresses, to create, you know, to connect those links. So it's important to remember that. Let's take a look at the last page. The students did some work. First of all, I gave them the OSI layers here, and I told them go ahead, do the OSI model. You're supposed to try to do it without looking anything up. The different layers, we have some application up here, sends data in here. You know, for example, I said the data could be presented in some form. That happens to be a capital A, using the American Standard Code of Information Interchange. Create a session. We figure out how we're going to transport the data, so we split it into segments. And then this is what we're currently working on, where we create a packet. The data comes down, so let's say here's the data from the layers above, and then we put IP addressing on it, which in a routing device is going to decide to go out this port, this port, this port, this port, etc., etc. Then to make the data link connection, like between here and some PC on the switch, to make this connection there to there, we create a frame. If it's Ethernet, we use media access control, we use MAC addresses, and you'll learn other ones later on. And then so that encapsulation takes all of this information up here, encapsulate it with the destination MAC addresses, so all that comes down, gets encapsulated, the bits go on the wire or in the air or on the fiber. So one of the things we tried to emphasize, when traffic would leave here, the MAC addresses would be remembered here. They'd be remembered in an address resolution protocol. It would create a mapping between an IP address and the MAC address. So then when the traffic comes back, let's say the green's coming back, when it gets here, it can match those up and it can put the right MAC address back on it, right here. And then it comes out onto the switch and it gets to the right device. So to remember the skills-based assessment is in the curriculum. The switch part is due Saturday. I think it's Saturday. You have to look in the curriculum. More or less configuring the switch that you're assigned. You can't just do any one. You got to do the one you're assigned. And then on Monday, first thing we do is the Cisco modular test, and that's chapter or units or modules 4 through 7. So you need to prep for that. And I would study. I would set aside some good study time, not while you're doing anything else, and review the information from those. I'd go through those and redo some of those questions, the questions at the end of the chapter, and read those end of the chapter items that summarize the chapter. I'd go back through that And if there's parts you don't understand, you can let me know, contact another student or whatever. But on Monday, that's the first thing you'll do, and then after you get that done, you'll have to put a workstation on your switch and get connectivity through the network all the way to the internet. And then Wednesday next week, we start talking about routing. We'll actually finish up the network layer, address resolution protocols, and then we'll just get started on routing. So we'll wrap up 8 and 9, and just get started with 10. That is it.